This right here is another case that I waited quite a long time to review on the channel. And regardless of that, we're going to cover today NZXT H5 FLOW RGB case. And I'm going to feature a T120 RGB CPU tower cooler, air tower cooler, whatever you want to call it. Now, this case right here is definitely, let's put it this way, a more advanced version of their past cases that had blocked airflow, and logical, everybody so far on their reviews and in comments, Reddit and everywhere else actually liked it just because it has an open front panel. And this is outstanding because for you guys that really love NZXT products and you still want an airflow, these type of cases are the ones to go with, right? So today we're going to cover the white version, and it's quite interesting to go through it because unfortunately this is the first time I'm actually meeting with it in those terms, right? So we have two 140 addressable RGB fans at the front and one non-RGB 120 at the back, which I removed because I wanted to have a full RGB spectrum stuff, and you get the point. And there's another fan. There's a fan in the power supply shroud compartment, but even though you know already everything, this fan right here pulls the air from the bottom and blows it directly to your GPU. So no hard drive cages, no nothing at the bottom except for the power supply and that fan, which has a certain shaped canal, well, not a canal, but a certain... It's not a funnel shape, but it still pushes the air directly to the front part of the GPU, giving it nice air. Right, so let's start with what you can do with this case. First of all, you could place an RTX 4070 Ti Supreme X, which is quite a long card, and that is quite possible. And you then have, I would say, just enough space to place a 27mm radiator. It will be like millimeter close, and you need to be very careful to do that. The only downside that I find on the front panel, and this is, I don't know what to say, they missed a chance to have a 280 or 240 at the front without losing the additional space here inside the chassis. Here's the thing, when you pop out the two thumb screws, you access the front fans, right? They could have been pushed a bit further and then placed in the middle the radiator between the chassis. Then you have, so it goes like this: chassis of the case that holds the fans, then you have the radiator, then you have the fans. But it's not possible because you have top and bottom border that actually blocks the tubes from the radiator going to your block. So there's that. Unfortunately, you can place it inside the case and lose additional space for the GPU. On top, you can place a 240 radiator, which doesn't actually block RAMs or VRM. There's no problem with clearance. You can still access all the pins at the top, even though you'll most likely have to fiddle around a bit. So what I did with the case, I didn't go this time with an AIO. I went with the T120 ARGB air cooler. We have two 140 originally stock from the case. We have 120 at the bottom. And I got three F120 RGB fans, two on top and one at the rear to get that additional exhaust. So I did two different benchmarks, but I'll leave that for the T120 video, so you'll get the picture how this case can actually cool better without the T120. And it brings us to the point that why even bother with T120 when you can go with a nice Kraken and place 240 at the top, cool everything down properly, and you won't have any issues or whatsoever. I mean, I didn't have any issues, let's be honest, but you'll hear that in that video. So regardless to that, we have a standard cable shroud going on the side, which didn't have the hole at the back properly aligned with the 24 pin. So the 24 pin kind of goes a bit under, and yeah, there's that. At the top we have loads of openings, and on the power supply shroud, at the bottom of the power supply shroud, if you have a too long power supply, you'll have to be very careful with organizing the cables, otherwise the fan is up to here, so almost half of the case. Regardless to that, they ditched their famous canals at the back for rerouting the cables, but they did something a bit different. For 24 pin you have three Velcro ties, and you have some sort of a canals and standoffs for you to use the zip ties as well. So as you can see at the back, actually, if you take your time, you could really do a nice cable management at the back, and you can close the backside panel without any problems. So regardless of everything, I think still that we have a quite solid case in terms of H5, H510 and all the other stuff, because the Flow edition, because it looks outstanding. I really love the minimalistic design when we're talking about NZXT in general. Love the subtle design when we're talking about the meshed front, and here we go. Unfortunately, I didn't boot up the ASRock Polychron Sync since we have an ASRock motherboard here, so it kind of synchronizes everything, but in the close-ups you'll see what I did. So as already stated, F120 at top, two of those, one at the back, and with the T120 I used the stock fan from the case and placed it at the back, because you get 4 hinges to mount the fans, 2 on front and 2 at the back. As you can see, SupremeX fits perfectly, and there's enough clearance for the 12V HPWR to place it here as well, which is quite okay, because usually some cases are a bit thinner, not that wide enough to be able to have the cable properly placed. So all in all, they missed the chance to have a 280 or 240 in front without losing or sacrificing the length of the GPU. But all in all, I would say if you're looking for a nice minimalistic case that has additional airflow from the bottom part of the power supply shroud compartment, which it isn't, I would say it's a fan compartment now, and blows directly to the GPU, I would say that's quite cool. Quite cool case, love it in terms of comparing it to the older versions and older models, and what we get here is just great. Now, I want to show you some benchmarks. It's going to be interesting and I'm going to discuss it. So, AIDA64 Extreme Edition with T120, only one fan, the front one. CPU goes up to 92 degrees, and this is the AMD Ryzen 5 7600X, clock speeds 5300 MHz, and GPU went up to 66 degrees. Now let's break it down with the CPU. The fan on the T120 has airflow 50 CFM, which is 30 less than some performance fans, right? So when I added the fan at the back, we got 89 degrees, so that's 3 degrees lower and 100 MHz higher clock speed. The GPU stayed the same, of course, but the GPU is interesting as well, because in other cases, regardless of this fan, in other cases I get on the SupremeX 64 degrees. So somehow this case gets 2 degrees more. Now, let's go with Cinebench. I'll let you know the higher scores. Why is that? Because if you decide to go with an AIO, you can expect even better results. So, thermals went up from 87 to 89 degrees, clock speeds went up to 5250 to 5275, and the score was around 14,000. So if you grab a better cooling, if you place an AIO at the top, or a air cooler with more heat pipes, better fan on the tower cooler, you would get even higher Cinebench scores. Regardless to that, I think this case should be and would be quite alright, just because we have, I would say, nice minimalistic design. This is what I personally love, and this is what I usually say regardless of the brand. Now, 140, 120 at the bottom and 120 at the back should be quite alright if you go with 240 at the top, 240 AIO at the top. If you go with this one, then I would definitely suggest adding one more fan here on the CPU to make additional exhaust, and add 3 fans for better air circulation, which would be quite alright. In general, shame that they didn't place the tubes at the top, well, basically give them more space, so you could actually have more space for the GPU and push the radiator inside. I think it's quite enough space. If I'm mistaken with the size, but I think you can fit a 27mm radiator on front, and with the fans that would be quite alright. All in all, love the design, love the final finish as always from NZXT, because everything they do, this is a nice matte finish which looks outstanding. Also at the back we have a possibility to mount 2.5-inch SSDs. Nothing here on the power supply shroud compartment. We have 2 holes to reroute the cables that you need at the bottom. And that's basically it when we're talking about this case. So finally, if you think that this case would suit you, you can check out the link in the description. I would maybe even suggest grabbing better fans than these with higher CFM, which will definitely bring more performance inside the case. And I mean, the case is outstanding, don't get me wrong, the case is outstanding. As already stated, the design, the minimalism, and everything else, just the fans, I think they should have been a bit better. And that'll be all for today. If you like this video, if you like the case, then don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and of course, don't forget to click the notification bell for future content. Thanks for watching. See you next time, guys. Bye bye.